Hi, so today we are going to be talking about the pros and cons of living in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we are going to get started right now. Mariah Koehle here. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if this is your very first time here. This channel is literally everything you need to know about eating, working, playing, sleeping, and living in the Salt Lake City, Utah area. If that is of interest to you, consider subscribing down below so you don't miss our weekly videos. We hear from people like you all the time who are relocating or looking to make a move today, tomorrow, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month from now, or a year from now. We would love to chat with you. Feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email, and it would be our pleasure to connect with you. Today we are talking about the pros and cons of living in Salt Lake City, Utah. So number one pro for living here is there is just a ton of stuff to do here. Whether you are into the arts and music and theater, there are going to be so many different experiences for you here. There are different festivals that you can attend. There are different activities that you can be involved in with that, different clubs that you can be involved in, if that is the direction you want to go. If you are a sports enthusiast and sports is your jam and that is what you love, there are an abundance of sporting activities and different things that you can get yourself into with that. If you are into the outdoors, there are so many outdoor activities here in Utah. You've got the world-class snow, you've got mountain biking, you've got hiking, you've got skiing, you've got snowboarding, you've got soccer, you've got an NBA basketball team here. There's just so many things to do here in Utah. Now, I remember when we were living, our family, we were living in California, and every summer we would end up coming out here to Utah, and we would stay for a week or 2 weeks, and then we would go back to California. And a lot of the times we ended up, when we came out here to Salt Lake City, a lot of times we would spend our time in the Heber Valley near Park City and Heber Midway area. And it just was a lovely vacation spot. We just had the best time, going there. And every time my kids would come out here, they would say, "Mom, I love being in Utah because all we do is party." And I said, "Oh, really? Like what kind of things is partying?" And they're like, "Well, we just do a lot." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And so a lot of the things that we found ourselves doing here, Utah is full of reservoirs and lakes and ponds and those different things. And so a lot of times when we would come out here in the summer, we would bring our stand-up paddle boards, our canoes, and we would go to the reservoir. A lot of the reservoirs have sandy beach areas. And so you bring your picnic, you set up your tent, and then the kids, and you can go out and you can paddleboard and you can canoe and kayak, and then you come back, and that's incredible. Another thing in terms of like things to do here that our family loves doing, we love bike riding, and Utah is chock full of bike trails everywhere. I mean, it seems like everywhere you go, there's an incredible biking system here. So we love taking our family out for family bike rides, and we go, and you can go miles and miles and miles without ever even seeing anybody or a car a lot of times, which for us and safety, we love that. So when my kids are like, "Oh, I just love coming to Utah because all we do is partying," it means we're going for bike rides, we're going to the reservoirs, we're going paddleboarding, we're going kayaking, and then we love hiking and just being outdoors. There are so many different hikes to do here in Utah as well. So just a lot to do, and that's going to be my pro for number one. My con for number one is going to be that Salt Lake City has something called an inversion. And an inversion, basically, it's this smoggy air that gets trapped inside of the Salt Lake Valley and the Salt Lake City, Utah area. And it's just this thick smog, and it usually blows in during a storm, and it just gets trapped because the way Salt Lake City is and the way it's a valley, and it just gets trapped in this little bowl area, and it just sits there. It typically doesn't sit there too long before another storm comes in and blows it out. but a lot of times it can get stuck there. And so sometimes we have what are, poor air days or bad air quality days, and it is because of that inversion that gets trapped in there. Again, it doesn't typically last too long, but when it does, you really don't want to be out in the smoggy air and that inversion. And a lot of people will actually go to areas that are outside of Salt Lake when that inversion gets trapped in there. They'll head to Park City, they'll head to Heber, they'll head to some of these other areas that don't typically see that inversion. So that's my pro and con for number one of living in Salt Lake City, Utah. Number two pro for living here in Salt Lake City, Utah is definitely going to be the job opportunities and the economic opportunities that are here in Utah. You've got tons of startup companies that are moving to Salt Lake. You've got lots of entrepreneurial people, jobs and companies that are also coming here. The tech industry is huge in the Silicon Slopes, which is just right outside of Salt Lake City, just south of that, which is in Lehi, Utah. You've got just a lot of different opportunities. Utah incentivizes businesses to come here with their lower tax rates than some of the surrounding states. So the job opportunities are big here. And then also they really, the unemployment rate here is much lower than the national average as well. And they really, incentivize and they encourage younger people to be working as well. It's not uncommon at the grocery store, or if you're at Subway or Domino's Pizza or any of these chain places, to see a 16-year-old working there, working the cash register, helping with the food, doing all of that. And which for me is so refreshing to see all of these wonderful faces at these different restaurants and places. So that is, I think, pro for number two for living here in Salt Lake City. Number two con in my book is going to be the traffic. Now, the traffic over the years has progressively, I feel like this has been a little bit more of a sleepy city in some ways, which for us, we love that. We love that you can walk and you can bike and you can get in this, the pace is a lot slower. However, over the years, the traffic has definitely increased. And if we're not talking LA rush hour traffic or anything like that, but there is definitely traffic if you are going at those rush hour times, 4, 5, 6 o'clock. A lot of times it won't be standstill where you won't be bumper to bumper, but it will be very, much slower on those freeway systems. But if you're off the freeways and you're, taking side roads, a lot of times it's not as bad. But just keep that in mind that traffic has increased here over the years. Number three pro for living here in Salt Lake City is just going to be, in my mind, the great culture, the number of athletics, the museums, and just again, like the culture here in Salt Lake is really incredible. I have seen personally, you've got right downtown, you've got what's called Temple Square, and the number of shopping centers, and they've got something called City Creek Mall that's a beautiful indoor outdoor sort of mall that's there that has all of the finest shops and great places that are down there. And again, it's walking distance. They've got underground parking, which is very nice, especially for cold, snowy days in the winter time. All of that is underground parking, which is awesome. And then just again, the culture and the activities and athletics in Salt Lake are awesome. We have taken our kids to several NBA Summer League games and then even NBA games during the regular season. The Utah Jazz are the local team. When we moved from California here to Utah, my son, who was, I think 9 at the time, he was like, well, Mom, I've been a Golden State Warrior fan my whole life. Am I going to be able to be a Jazz fan? Or do I have to be a Jazz fan? I said, that is totally up to you, my friend. So he had to debate a little bit about that. Yes, he still loves the Warriors, but he also is a big Jazz fan now too. They just create a really fun family environment at these games too. So they make it great for everybody. So that's definitely going to be my pro for living in Salt Lake City, Utah. culture, activities and those athletics. And then just the shopping downtown is really great too. Number 3 con of living in Salt Lake City, Utah, for me personally, is going to be a longer winter. So sometimes by the time you get to, for me, it's maybe going to be like February. I'm like, okay, I'm all good with winter now. Like December, that was so fun to have Christmas and the snow and Christmas, and you had your white Christmas, which was great. And then you moved right into January and you got your ski season. You're like, oh, this is so good. And then February hits and you're going, okay, wait, it's still snowing. And now it's the end of February. And then, a lot of times it can go into March as well. So that you'll see March, snow in March as well. And then of course you're going to, every once in a while in April, it'll snow some more when you think it's all done. And then occasionally you'll even see some snow in May when you're thinking there's no possible way, like winter has to be over now. It's not. So for me, again, there are some years where they'll say like, oh, it was a mild winter, meaning not much snow. Or, oh, this was actually a really heavy winter where there was a lot of snow. Since we have lived here the last few years, people have said like, oh, it's a pretty mild winter. But those can definitely vary. So for me, winters can be a little bit long. It's not uncommon for people to take a great warm vacation sometime in the month of January, February, or March to break things up. In fact, lots of people will go down to southern Utah, down to St. George, down to Cedar City, and they will kind of snowbird down there where it's many, many degrees warmer than it is up here in the wintertime. Number 4 of pro of living here in Salt Lake City, Utah is going to be the affordability. The affordability here compared to the national average in, the country is going to be 6% lower for affordability, cost of living than the national average. We're seeing that with house prices. We're seeing that with utilities, gas, electric, those kind of things here in Utah is still more affordable than, say, living in California, living back east in New York, those type of places. It's going to be significantly lower for the price of the house you're going to get, for the size that you get, for the lot. It's going to be more affordable than some of the surrounding places. And number 4 for my con of living in Utah, this one kind of goes to weather too. Sometimes my husband and I joke about the weather here and we're like, okay, it either just needs to make up its mind. Either it's super, super hot or super, super cold, but a lot of times you don't have that in between, or the in between that you do have in terms of weather here in Utah will be in fall or spring a lot of times. And it's just one of those, you'll have a perfect week of just incredibly perfect weather, right? And then it will go from perfect weather for 1 week to either too hot in my mind or too cold in my mind. And so just finding that perfect San Diego kind of temperature, right, is few and far in between here. So it's not uncommon to have hot days or cold days, and sprinkled in between with some perfect weeks here and there. The weather is still great compared to lots of other places, but for me, I'm like, it would just be great to have just a few more weeks of that perfect weather all year long, but you never know. So number 5, what I see as a pro here to Utah is just the accessibility to surrounding places. And if you love to travel, Utah is a great hub for that. You've got Salt Lake City International Airport that is minutes outside of the city, and that can take you all over the country for that. And then just again, the accessibility to different parks. We've got 5 national parks that are here in Utah. We've got Arches National Park, we've got Canyonlands, we've got Bryce Canyon, we've got Capitol Reef, we've got Arches. We've got so many beautiful national parks here. And then if you go toward Idaho, Montana, you've got Yellowstone National Park. You've also got the Grand Tetons. So just accessibility to national parks, accessibility to different things, I think here is incredible. People who want to go down to San Diego and Southern California, you're 9 hours away in the car. You're an hour and a half plane trip, 2 hours max to get from Salt Lake City to San Diego. So I know lots of people go from here down to Orange County, here down to, San Diego, up to Northern California is about an 11-hour trip. So there's a lot of things that you can just get to easily from Salt Lake City, Utah as well. So if you are thinking about making a move or relocating here to Salt Lake City, Utah, feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email. We hear from people like you all the time that are relocating or looking to make a move, and we absolutely love it.